This morning I worked on creating the Pied Piper's hat, which I cut the fabric and faux shape for out yesterday. I did this by placing the pattern piece on the fabric on the fold. I folded the fabric over and had the line of the fold down there, so that when I cut it I had two symmetrical pieces, which I would then unfold and sew together. But because I had faux shape in it to make it stiffer so the hat could actually hold its shape as the fabric was quite thin, I needed to find a way to put the faux shape in there without having the edge of the faux shape visible. Because if I just sandwiched it all together and sewed it, you would be able to see the white of the faux shape through, and I didn't want that at all. I think that would look quite messy. So I decided to try sewing all around the outside of the two pieces of fabric on top of each other, and then leaving a gap at the top, bagging it out, and then cutting the faux shape slightly smaller than the other two pieces of fabric and inserting that inside, and then I stitched all around it to hold the faux shape in place inside there, and I also stitched around the top. I chose to leave the gap at the part where that seam would be on the inside, so it wouldn't be visible. And it was quite important that the seams down the sides at the bottom of the sides of the hat down here were tidy, because you flip the top up so it's got a rim. So you flip up so it's got a rim. So any seam here, which is the middle seam, would be visible, and the inside seam would be visible. So I didn't want any faux shape being able to see through that. So I did that, and it actually worked very well. I did have to take it out and retrim it a couple of times, but then it fit, and I sewed around the edge again. I did have to unpick this the first time because I found the fabric started tucking and contorting, so I pinned it down so it would stop moving so I wouldn't get any tucks or lumps. And then I folded it in half and sewed down the centre seam inside out, and then I flipped it the right way around so that seam was invisible, and then I flipped up the top, and then that was the base of the hat done. I then added some gold edging onto the rim of the hat. So to do that, I flipped the hat back inside out because it's the under part that you see, and if it was inside out then I could have the whole hat flat and sew onto there. Because it frayed very easily, I had to tuck the end of the trim underneath so that it didn't fray and it could be held down, and none of the fraying would be visible. So I sewed that down on one side all around, except when I got to the middle seam here, because it was too thick for the machine to go through with both the seam and the trim. I left a little gap. I just put it over, and then I started sewing again here. So I sewed up to here, and I stopped. I pulled the trimming over, and then I started sewing again here. And I sewed along the top and the bottom of the trim to hold it securely in place. After I had done that, I added a feather. Initially I wanted quite a pale yellow feather to match the colour of the Pied Piper's shirt, but there wasn't one like that. I wasn't really expecting there to be one like that, as it's quite a specific colour. So I used a white feather, but it was more of a cream white, so it wasn't like a bright white, it was softer, which I felt matched the costume better. I trimmed it down a bit as it was very large, and the shape, it's very square at the top, so I trimmed it down to make it more feather shaped, and then I hand sewed the feather on, and I steamed the faux shape a little bit just to help it hold its shape all the way around and to also press some of the seams a bit flatter. After I'd done that, I started working on making a drawstring bag for the Pied Piper to have on his belt. To do this, I just cut out a square, and then I cut little slits in the top and bottom of the squares so I could fold down and create a channel for ribbon to make the drawstring. And I sewed all of that, but before sewing up the sides of the square, which I do to make it into a bag, I wanted to make the something to attach it to the belt, so you weren't like attaching it with the ribbon or anything. So I made another square and I attached Velcro one side and Velcro to another, and then I curved this round and sewed it in the middle there so that it was like it was a flap, so you could put it around your belt and Velcro it on and take it on and off, so it would work with different belt sizes because I hadn't decided on what belt I was using yet. I wanted something that could work for any, which it did. I also did with that one. I also sewed it inside out and flipped it round so that so all the seams were neat and tidy. I then pressed everything down so none of the all the seams were flat, especially in the loop to attach to the belt, as it was quite puffy before and I wanted it flat and the edge of the seams to be crisp. And then I went to look for some ribbon to put inside of the drawstring bag. I tried some white initially, but this didn't work at all. It was far too bright and it didn't look right. It looked quite, it didn't fit with the costume. It felt quite unnatural. So I'm going to have a look for something darker. I'm going to have a look for maybe a black or something that I can use instead. Something I think I could have done better with the drawstring bag. I think I could have cut the slits a bit further in, as it's still the edge of the channel for the drawstring is kind of poking out like that at an angle. And if I'd cut a bit deeper, I could have folded it over and it would have looked tidier and less wonky on the side seam. So I would definitely do that if I were to do this again. As well as with the hat, I think I might take a bit more care with the seam that gets shown in the front there, because, well, it's on show, and I think there may have been a way to stop it from being on show. That I'm not quite sure how I'd do that, but I think it maybe would have been better if I'd researched that first and then worked on it. Something that went well today, I think, was something I really liked was how the trim matched the Pied Piper's costume, because as he has like this golden sort of golden shirt and green brown jacket with like golden patterning on it, and I feel like that matched it really well, and I liked how that looked together. The same with the feather, although it wasn't quite the colour that I was looking for, I think it worked better as it was, and I think, yeah, I think that